And we are live, I think. Welcome to Ignite Talks on Air, second episode. Or if you look at the index number, it's episode 1. And today we're going to talk about switching careers to IT. And we're hosting these amazing people here: Mateusz, Paula, Michał, and myself. I think we at the beginning will shortly describe our story and how we got into IT and why. And after that, we're going to answer a bunch of questions that we gathered before the stream. And if you want to ask any questions, do this on any medium that you're currently on, and we will see the comments and try to answer those. Everything will be recorded, so you can watch it later after this. And let's start with Mateusz.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Mateusz. I work at 11 Sigma for Stoplight, and I mostly do like front-end development. So I don't know if I should like draw a kind of a background how I switched into IT. Because I think my situation is slightly different than everybody else here, because from what I understand, most of people here kind of transition maybe later in a career. So you had like first job and then later you switched. For me, it was slightly different. I switched during university. So when I was in school, like primary school, high school, I was never interested in like mathematics or computer science or computers in general. I didn't do any programming. I was very much a humanities kid, and my parents thought that I would be a journalist or something. So after high school, I started studying cultural studies. We had this weird degree in cultural studies in Poland. I did this for 1 year. Then I was kind of like, wasn't very sure about it. So I switched to philosophy. So I studied philosophy for also like 1, maybe 2 years. And during philosophy, I started having these logic courses, which are kind of like mathematical, kind of like very precise. And this was my first encounter with kind of like formal mathematics and stuff. And for some weird reason, this hooked me. I had no clue why, but this was for me the most interesting topics during the studies. So I decided to switch again. And this was the moment when I decided to maybe try something more practical for the first time in my life. So I was thinking mathematics at the beginning, but in the end, I decided, okay, let's do something that will actually provide like bread at my table, like something that I actually could earn money. So I switched to computer science. And this was, when I went for the first year studying there, I never did any programming before. And that's when I learned like coding. We had like classes in Python, I believe, the first year, and since then it kind of took off. But even then, I was studying for I think like almost 2 years, and kind of I was having like regular courses, but I really didn't like that. Every program we do was kind of like terminal program where you had to type some commands and you saw some text output or number output. And for me, this was very boring. I wanted to make like real applications. So instead of going to the classes, I was actually studying by myself, and I started studying Angular, kind of like HTML, CSS, JS, and Angular. And this kind of pushed me toward front-end development. And then I found a job. I quit university, and here I am, like I think like 5 or 6 years already, kind of working as a developer.
Cool. Thank you, Mateusz. By the way, before a second person goes, I want to say we're getting popular. We're getting spam on YouTube from bot that comments on the YouTube channel. So yay us. The next person is Paula.
Hi, I'm Paula. I am in Austin, Texas, and I work for Stoplight. I'm a front-end developer there, and I work with Mateusz and Michał. So I am also obviously did not study anything related to technology in school. I majored in mass communication and marketing, and then went into public relations as soon as I graduated, and did a whole host of things. Ended up in account management, where I was basically talking to people all day, every day about renewing a service. And I just was not really into that. And so I had a friend who had gone into tech from a similar background. And he encouraged me to check it out. I had never considered it before, but then I said, maybe I can just take a little peek, and I did, and it was really a fun. It was like opened up this whole new realm for me, and I also realized that I didn't have to have like a super strong, I guess, computer science background to like go into it. So I took a boot camp. I'm one of those people, and I think it was about 4 months. It was like full time, 40 hours a week. And yeah, I completed that, and then, started interviewing for jobs, and somehow found Stoplight. And so here I am today. Yeah, it's been great so far.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Michał now.
Hi everyone, my name is Michał, and I'm actually the only person here that doesn't work at Stoplight. My success story and my whole story is a little bit different. So just to start of where it all began, it basically, my story is that during high school, I wasn't very sure of what career path I should take. I was thinking between some biotechnology or some medicine studies, but I wasn't sure about that. And I was doing some switches back then, and I ended up in a biomedical engineering bachelor degree course. So my switch was also to more like technical based studies. But when I was studying biomedical engineering, during the second or third year, I was having many doubts about this course, since it just did not fit me that much. And I was thinking about the change, because through those years, I was rather feeling that I wasn't directly doing what I love to do and what I like to do, and I was kind of searching myself. So I was really fortunate because I found one internship. It was in the World Institute of Hearing in Poland. And I work closely with magnetic resonance imaging and machine. And there I got a task, an assignment to actually develop an application which generates audio signals. So that was the moment when I seen that the programming could be really cool. I got so much involved into this topic. I got a very good guidance from my mentor during this internship, and that was actually the turning point. And then I decided that surely I just need to do programming, since it seems very great. But I was completely green at the time. I wasn't aware of any development practices, the whole software engineering process. It was more like an academical based one. So therefore, I've decided to take a master's studies in computer science. And that was a pretty long road, because I did those studies with an extra year. But it was kind of a warpath to me, because I was very green and I just wanted to push this topic further. So I just know everything in details. But yeah, that was kind of like a tough path for me. But I overall, it just navigated me to the place where I am. And right now I work as Android developer for more than 5 years. And I've discovered Android during this master studies, and Android became a framework that I'm working on currently, which I really like. And my current place of work is West Wing.
Okay, thank you, Michał. And I am the last person to introduce themselves. I'm Michał as well. I'm an ex-biotechnology engineer, and I work in that industry for some time. First, I was in pharmaceutical company where I made my master's degree and stayed there for an internship. Then I was a technical salesman / consultant for biotech. So I was going around and helping people to figure out what is the best equipment and what is the best way to approach developing their studies. But for some time, I feel that is the similar case for a lot of people. I felt like, okay, this is fun, but something is wrong here. I want to do something different. And because Chris, my brother, was working with Stoplight at that point, he told me, hey, there is a manual QA opening, and you should try. Like, and I thought, okay, yeah, I'm looking for a remote job. I'm looking for a possibility to switch to IT, and manual QA seemed to be relatively easy way to go into that. And yeah, I started doing that. I was accepted in Stoplight. And basically I'm a self-taught for the whole period of time. After a few months, all of a sudden I was told, okay, Michael, now you will write automated tests, and that kind of introduced me to programming in general. And after some time of that, well, I switched teams basically, and landed in a deep water where I just needed to adapt really quick. And I think that was the moment that I joined the team with maybe not Mateusz. Mateusz wasn't there yet, probably. Mateusz joined a few months later. But yeah, basically my path is that I joined as a QA and built my way up to join the team of software developers. And why did I change? That's a good question. And I think the reason is that I just liked creating stuff. And this feels like a possibility to create stuff. I play music, and I think Michał as well, the other Michał as well. So I always want a creative output, and programming kind of feels like, you can do anything. So that's my introduction, and I think we will go to the first question now that I got on Dev2. And it is more of a comment, but also I think we can like kind of answer to that. So, hey Michael, I was also in biotech. I loved it, but wanted to change. Then I taught for a while, but teaching holds no respect in the US. I felt that I was learning the right things and in the right amounts, but when I talked to others, I found or felt I lagged behind. I missed certain topics or ideas that I should have picked up. In other words, there are tests to say, now you're good enough. It is very amorphous. The criteria for learning skill seemed vague at times. This left me wondering where to go at times. So I think what the question here is, like, when you start programming, when do you know if you're good enough? And are there any measures you take to do that, or you just try stuff and see how it goes? Yeah. Anybody?
Yeah, there are many ways of achieving a success, and especially in the IT world, where there are a ton of frameworks, ton of solutions that you can use or build around. All the cloud functionality is so vague. What I would like to recommend is the fact that at the beginning, I know it sounds overwhelming, but the best approach, in my opinion, is to just start picking a particular subject. If you, for instance, really like front-end work, in my opinion, the best way is to just to stick with the front-end. And also pick the framework or weapon of your choice. If it's a React, if it is even a mobile front-end development, so you can pick iOS, Android, because that is kind of a way that you can get an expertise upon. So you can really get better and better. You can start digging the framework, knowing its limits, knowing its possibilities. You then start to compare. I think it's a kind of a path that it's helpful for many people, since they just learning how particular piece of technology works. And I think it's very opening for future adventures.
Yeah, I would actually also add that I remember when I was actually studying computer science, and I thought for myself, okay, am I good enough? Am I finally ready? And the best way to check if you are ready to get a job is to try and get a job, So just start applying, start sending your CV. And for me, I think I started sending CVs too late. That's what I think. And also, I remember, I didn't get a job at my first interview. I remember I was interviewing, I think, at least like 5 companies, and people started saying, yeah, you're kind of good, but, we are looking for somebody else or whatever, like we'll call you back, right? And then when I got a job, then I was like, oh, okay, since I got a job now, I feel that I'm actually like up to it. And again, I started sending those CVs too late, to the point where when I got a job, I was junior developer only for like 3 months, because I was already so advanced that I, like got promotion very, very fast, because I started too late. I should have been more courageous. I should have started sending CVs as soon as I knew some kind of, like fundamentals of CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. And yes, that's what you said, actually, that today there's so many technologies. You have like React, Angular, some like crazy frameworks, and people think that they need to know everything. And that's not the case. For me, this is always like, oh, just learn fundamentals, the bare basics, and the rest you will learn at work. That's what I do all the time. I'm learning new stuff all the time, and I do it at work, because you cannot learn everything on your own free time. So.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, the sooner you start, the better. And when you overthink, like if you're good enough, yeah, you're not gonna do anything at all, or start too late. So, well, there's no too late, but you could have started earlier if you wanted. We have a question from YouTube, kind of related to this one. Should one start at startups or enterprise, and how to not get into an endless recruiting process and never get a reply? In other words, how to position oneself to increase chances of getting hired. And that's a good question. And once again, I was hired as a QA, so I don't really encounter a process of recruiting right now, and I think somebody else should answer this one.
I can try to answer it. I have a little bit of a leg up, I think, or I did when I started trying to get a job, in that my previous job was at an employer branding agency. So I was talking to people and talent and HR every day, and I kind of like knew the lingo and what they were looking for. But I will say, like, looking for a job now, it presents like a totally different advantage for people because there are so many more remote positions available, and it really opens you up. I would say my number one piece of advice is to have personal brand, and like know the value that you be bringing to a company, and develop that. So just like selling a product, but you're kind of selling yourself as an employee. And something that I found helpful, especially switching from non-tech to like software engineering, was that I had all of these other skills that I could bring to the job as a developer. So like I was still working on my logic and reasoning skills, right? But I had like a lot of soft skills from my past in communications that made it kind of like I had previous experience in business and in working. So I would say there are a lot of things that you can do, and I think that getting ghosted from companies, like you don't have control over that, so you can only do as much, like as long as you're holding up your end of the work. Don't feel bad. That's not about you. It's a them problem. But I guess my advice is, work on that personal brand and keep the funnel full, like keep the momentum, and it will happen eventually.
Yeah, try until you make it, basically, because there is no wrong path, I think. Like, doesn't matter if you just joining as a mid or junior, or like I did as a QA, and then building your way up. Like, just start and then find a mentor, I would suggest, or somebody within the company to help you grow even more.
But I do think we can also elaborate on this topic more, because I think this question also related to how can we just basically ramp up to the IT world. It's like, what should you do before you get a mentor? It's actually kind of a question that makes you, okay, there is an IT world and I would like to join into this bubble. How can I break the barrier? And I was thinking about this question because, well, we might differentiate two things. People like under 25 that have more time, that they are willing to take up courses, studies. They don't have that many responsibilities in their daily lives, like kids, family, earning on the regular basis. Hence, I think that's, of course, more convenient situation in terms that you have a time. So definitely the solution is pretty simple. You have more time, you can basically spend it or many courses or making degrees. But I think the interesting point is that for people that are a bit older, they have families, they have lots of responsibilities. And as I was thinking, because a friend of mine is a very similar situation, I really do suggest learning in small intervals. Like if you have your 8 hours work and you cannot work less, just think about spending like 45 minutes or 1 hour and 30 minutes after work. Like if you could do it every day, that would be great. But just to organize some slots where you can devote yourself to learning about programming. Get yourself a note, take notes, think about changing, rephrasing what you've learned, just to be in a constant learning loop, to know your topics. And also during that progress, I also believe that it's very beneficial to prove yourself with the code. So get yourself a GitHub, write down the code. What you can learn something from the YouTube. There is some tutorial explaining how to build, for instance, particular React component. You can also build it on your own during that time. If you have some like 3 afternoons out of 5 work week, that would be just great. So just to remember to allocate some space for the work, because I know that it can be hard. There are many responsibilities in the life, and switching to IT is also not straightforward in terms that it's also about your time that you can spend.
Yeah, actually, I also think there is this stereotype that, okay, now I'm switching to IT. It is super easy. and like I don't need to do anything. Yeah, the market is great. The market is great. That is true. Although, like for the last year after switching, I was working 13 hours a day, somewhere around that. Like, and because I was doing my full-time job, and then after that, a few hours of learning, right? So this is the kind of thing that you need to prepare for. That this requires work and a lot of work, and it pays off, of course. But yeah, just be prepared. And learning materials, I think, is a completely whole topic in itself that we could talk for like hours and hours. I even wrote an article about it on Dev2. So it's a really broad topic, but I think there are other parts of switching to IT. Like there was a question about where to look at first for a first job, like job boards, LinkedIn, personal network. Should you email CEOs or companies, send just a ton of CVs? Like what did you do, and what do you think was the most successful approach for you?
What worked for me in that manner was actually building up my portfolio before. So it was a moment where I actually, when I started my first job, it was actually in Samsung as a junior software engineer related with mobile. I actually got few internships before, and I didn't graduate. I didn't do my master yet during the time, but I was kind of in the middle of finishing them. So it was a kind of portfolio was built. So I get hooked on, really ramped up really well in that manner. So I think that before sending a ton of CVs, I think that the enabler for such step is to actually think about how you can improve your CV, like using links to your GitHub profile, proving that you have done some courses or wrote some article, but basically something that says, okay, you have those developer qualities, and those are some products that you have made, or a code as an outcome of your work.
Yeah, actually, I highly agree with this, and especially with you mentioned GitHub and having your own projects. I remember that now that I'm more like a senior developer, recruiters don't look at my GitHub; they don't care. But when I was junior, people were looking at it all the time. They were like looking at specific code files, looking how I write code, how I structure functions, how I name variables. When you are a junior developer, people will be more picky and kind of more, like wary of your actual skills. So that's what you said. You have to prove yourself. And for me, yeah, like you have this opportunity to show your code on GitHub. It doesn't cost you anything. You can present your skills. I 100% do it. And also, I also like I didn't do it at the beginning, but later I've made like a little personal blog. And it doesn't have to be like something massive. You don't need to have like 1,000 articles. Write 2 articles about React or JavaScript or whatever, kind of present what you learned, or maybe topic that interests you. And also maybe also this, like, show your interest in topics. Because if you are there just like, oh, hello, I'm here just for money, then people will be like, oh, okay, that's one of those people. But if you show that, no, I'm actually interested, like this React, I don't know, React hooks are so cool. It's so weird, but I like them, this will show kind of your passion. So yes, show off your skills, show off your passion, and you will be fine.
And Paula, I remember when I joined, when I started working with you on the team, I started checking people online presence, like Twitter and stuff. I remember seeing your personal website. And like, was this a part of the personal brand creation that you talked about before for the hiring process, or?
Yeah, I did literally everything I could to build my my presence online, because I think, going back to the question, I don't remember the entire thing, but I was reaching out to friends of friends, like anyone that would give me the time of day to like do informational interviews, and even just like ask them about their experience. And so I wanted to have something that would, that was like about me that I could share as well. And a really good piece of advice I got from someone when I was going through this job search process. I didn't know whether to focus my time on creating my own website and my portfolio and building that out, or focusing on like nailing a coding interview and working out algorithms and being able to do that. And I felt like I couldn't do both things. Like there wasn't enough time in the day. And I remember that one of my instructors told me, like, people when they're hiring are going to first look at like what you've been working on, and they want to see that you're excited and you have opinions about things in the programming world. So I definitely agree with Mateusz and Michał, like having that collateral to share is super important. And I would say like reach out to everyone. Like the more you build your funnel at the top, I mean, it's the same as like a marketing or sales funnel, right? Like the more you have in the funnel, the higher chances you have of like conversion, getting hired at the bottom of that funnel. And so any avenue, and informational interviews are really sneaky ways to like get people to reach back out to you when they have openings on their team, I will say.
Yeah, and I think about reaching out to people, even if you don't have any people from IT industry in your network, like depending on if you're an extrovert or an introvert, either going to maybe some meetups, either live or like in person or online ones, or maybe just, joining programming communities on Slack, Discord, wherever, DevDo. So this just basically helps to build the network. And if people meet you in person and see who you are, it might increase your chances of getting hired. If a person that you meet at this meetup is by a chance, a recruiter or of some kind. So I think that's also a possibility to increase your chances when looking for a job. And I for checking your skills, I started using this website called Full Stack Cafe. I'm showing the address just now, and you need to pay for the pro version, but for the free version you can use, I think, for the beginner and junior levels. There's just a bunch of questions related to different areas. You can pick like JS, HTML, whatever you want, some frameworks, React, and this way it's a good way to prepare for interviews. Of course, you will still get the best lessons from actually going to the interview, but maybe if you're scared at the beginning and want to check your skills beforehand, I would do this kind of stuff. Okay.
Also, can I expand a little bit on what Paula said? Because I think it is a two-step process actually. The first step is to actually get an interview, and then second step is to pass the interview. And you can kind of see where you are at by looking where you're getting in this process. So if you are not getting invitations to interviews, then I would say you have a kind of like a branding problem, and you should work on your portfolio, on your website, on your CV, on having articles, on having projects, and this will get you an interview. But later you have to pass in the interview, and if you cannot pass the interview, then it means you have to go back, work on your fundamentals, go to those websites that allow you to kind of test your skills and work from there. So this is like, there are two parts, branding and like actual knowledge, and both are involved in this process. First step is more branding, and second step is more actual like testing your like core knowledge.
I have a question to Paula. What's an informational interview?
An informational interview is basically just a meeting with someone who you want to know what it's like to do their job. So I would reach out to a software engineer at Apple and say, hey, I wanted to know if you had, 30 minutes to, not even 15, 20 minutes to spare. So I could ask you some questions about what it's like to do your job, how you got into it, basically just giving someone else the opportunity to talk about themselves, because people love to do that, as displayed by all of us here. And yeah, it's great to get to know more about, the job. And then you also now are in that person's memory and they're part of your network. So it's a great tool. I highly recommend.
Yeah, and I think you can also check if you fit the culture in the company as well, right? Yeah, that way. This is basically not a technical part of the interview, but rather introducing yourself and like checking if I want to work there and if they want me, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. There was a question about imposter syndrome. So we're getting into place where a person is already hired. And did you have an imposter syndrome? I think this is a rhetorical question, but yeah, I just wanted to ask. And how did you manage to deal with it?
Oh, for sure, it was present. Also coupled with inferiority complex that you are not feeling adequate to the world that you are entering. Yeah, I faced that mainly during studies, but later on also during the work, that I'm not that good enough. And that was a kind of a thought which was kind of like crawling in the back. But I think that overall it somehow needs to be tackled with. And I was trying to deal with it, because that's not gonna work for you either. I know that this imposter syndrome is very present at the moment when people are starting their IT career, especially that they are seeing that there are some people who started at the very early age. They got successful, and you hear those success stories. You do hear those salary that companies are offering. So it's kind of like, it might be a little bit overwhelming in general. But I do think that somehow I think it's very important to be persistent in the way of work and learning. But you need to somehow find your persistent approach to get into IT. If you have no contacts, if you have no time, then it's really the issue of being persistent, not letting it go, allocating time whenever it's possible, and just learning, just keep going, just keep writing the code, keep posting the code, keep sharing the code in the GitHub especially. I think those are like the simple steps that can be taken just to stop thinking that you are not enough. We are not enough at a certain point in our lives. We might always think like that, but it's not gonna lead us anywhere. There are also software engineering is about breaking complex problems into smaller sub problems. The complex problem for that case would be getting a nice well-paid job. And you need to break it into that sub problems. Learn objective-oriented programming, learn functional programming, learn recursion, and so on, so on. So I think it's all about this technical mental approach, that you just aware of those small steps that contribute to a bigger picture. So you do take them into consideration in your career path, that they just don't scare you away. There will be many that small blocks, pieces of knowledge that you will need to get, but still they are needed to get where you can go with the IT.
Yeah, I had a discussion with someone some time ago, and I think the outcome of that discussion was that the quickest way to burn out is to be ambitious, but to not have any goals, And this is kind of true. Like if you split what you want to do in the small pieces, it's much easier to comprehend and like deal with it. I agree. And an imposter syndrome, I think that happens at all levels. Even if you're like a senior level engineer, it will still happen. For me, it kind of started going away when I started understanding a bit more, and then I discovered that people around me not always know what they're doing, and it's not a bad thing. Like I think somebody said before here that you're not going to know everything, and that's completely fine. Like you need to give yourself a room for improvement, and this is
Well,
a much complex and deeper topic, I think, on a psychological level. Like, yeah, but being open about it with your teammates who can maybe give you feedback about if you're good enough, if you're not good enough, I can guarantee most of the times it will be you're doing great, and keep doing what you're doing. You can improve here, 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 so you at least know where you're lacking. So yeah, any other thoughts?
I actually remember when I first got a job finally after like sending those 1,000 CVs and going through all those interviews. I got a job, and in the first job, every junior had like a mentor person. So you had assigned person. It was your like mentor. You could always go to them, ask them questions. So for the first like 2 weeks, I was terrified to ask questions because I was like, oh, I should probably know this, but I don't know this. So I am afraid to ask, you know. But I was like, okay, you have to ask them because otherwise you will just waste everybody's time. So I went to them, asked them the questions, and they were like, I don't know. I have no clue. We have to check this. We have to check documentation. You know, so I was like, oh, so it's not like, oh, everybody knows everything and I'm the dumb guy. You know, there's like, as you said, it's absolutely fine to not know stuff. And to this day, you know, I'm more on like senior positions. I'm 6 years into like professional career, and I still have imposter syndrome. I still forget like the simplest stuff. You know, we recently had to use array reduce, and I forgot which way you should put the arguments, which one was the accumulator, which one was for the array elements. So it's completely normal. It's completely fine. And yeah, senior people forget stuff as well, or they don't know stuff. They have to keep learning as well. So it's completely normal.
I might also add to this topic that I think our discussion boils down to somehow a mental approach or kind of a mindset that you are actually sharpen, willing to take, because it's not like the software development is for everyone, because I think that we are basically talking about becoming a software developer, right? But also like joining QA. I think it's also requires some abilities that either you can work upon or try learning, as you previously said, for instance, taking the course from the logic or learning about that. But I really do think that the right approach that, well, you just like it and you are willing to take it will benefit in the long run.
And you should seek for answers. Like that's what we do on an everyday basis, is basically looking for answers, how to do things and solve problems.
Yeah, curious us.
Oh, sorry, I muted you for a moment because I heard an echo. Sorry.
I just wanted to add that, yeah, the curiosity is a very important virtue.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff around joining to IT. Like people are asking questions. What do I need to do? How can I start? Like, do I need a CS degree? I think we're a great example that no, you don't. Maybe Michał has a CS degree, right? Although he switched to, like, he did an engineering title first, and then in 6 months he needed to catch up with 3 years of IT engineering knowledge. But you don't need a CS degree. You need to be curious You have eye for detail. Yeah. And maybe that's it.
I also just wanted to go back real quick to the imposter syndrome and say, like, if you switched career paths to literally anything, like, it takes time before you will feel comfortable in that. And so I think that if you don't have imposter syndrome, there might be something that would be more concerning, honestly. Like, it's, in what world do you not have that?
Yeah, because you don't care or something. Yeah,
right. So yeah. It's a good thing sometimes, not too much, but be easy on yourself.
True. Like at this point of your career, are you sure that tech is the thing you want to do? Like, or are you still looking for some stuff like, I don't know, switching to product or somewhat related roles, maybe doing some UI UX instead of programming, or are you completely focused on, okay, I'm coding now? Or do you think that it could change? Maybe not like in a few months, but in 5 years or something.
I mean, I can definitely say that after 5 or 6 years, I have like a love-hate relationship with technology. So there are days where I'm just like, oh my God, this is the best job ever. I'm just sitting here drinking coffee, like, writing unit test after unit test, everything passes, everything is great. But then you have this like stupid bug, and you are trying to solve it for 2 days and you hate your life. You think, oh my God, this is the dumbest thing ever. This should work out of the box and I have to sit here. So there are always massive swings, I believe. I believe this is more emotional career than people anticipate. I think people anticipate something very technical, very strict, and you're just like, do almost like a machine just hitting the keyboard. But there's many emotions, when you are planning sprints, when you're reviewing sprints, doing retros, there's always a lot of emotions, sometimes very positive, sometimes very negative. So I don't know. I'm not thinking too much about switching careers for now. I think I'm here for good. But there's definitely, it's not for everybody. This is something that Michał actually said as well, that there are people who will not find themselves in a career as well as they would anticipate. From the outside, of course, it seems amazing. The pay is great. The working conditions are great. You can work from home. You can work while traveling. This sounds amazing. But then, it is very often it is a demanding job that requires a lot of like even emotional input from you, and it can be very draining sometimes. So, of course, it's amazing. I'm great. I'm here to stay. But there are also those more negative sides, and for some people it's too much. So there are people who actually quit tech and they move on to, I don't know, plant trees or something.
Yeah, and to expand your thoughts, it's also, I believe that nowadays a modern developer, like in 2021, it's not that the shy introvert guy who just types the keyboard and does everything on his own. We are working with large teams, smaller teams. We do communicate. Communication is also very, very important, especially when you have a team which is distributed across the globe on different time zones, for instance. It's totally, it's just an inherent thing to communicate well. Also, if you find some problems, you need to communicate them. Or if you find solutions, how to improve the architecture of the code base, you also somehow need to communicate them. And I do believe that the modern developer also requires those kind of like a soft skill set, as we might say, but nevertheless a communicative skills and also this sharp technical eye on the details, on the project, on algorithms that are applied. And for me, privately, I'm feeling very, very satisfied in a developer role. I was holding a Scrum Master role for like 8 months. So I was involved into Scrum planning, the whole Scrum process, the plannings, the whole Agile, which was pretty strict. But then I've just reverted back to programming, and I just learned that it's so great. I also have love-hate relationship like Mateusz, but come on, that's the way that the relationships are the best.
Yeah, it's normal.
Okay, we can proceed to the next question. What tech stack did you choose to learn first and why? And I think we could expand that, like what tech stack should you pick, and if it does it matter? I don't think it matters. Depending on where you want to go with your career. Like if you want to do some data science, probably backend technologies would be best. So you don't waste your time in front end. But well, the easiest way to learn and the most popular is basically JS, CSS, HTML. And in order, I would say HTML, CSS, JS. Various materials to do that, a lot of those. And I personally like doing stuff. So I would suggest there's this website called internetingishard.com. And it's a course on HTML and CSS, which is very beautifully created, has nice graphics, and you can check your progress as you go, and then proceeding to some book and having that minimal stack, trying to build on top of that, learning React, maybe trying to build your own out, set up a database, build an API. That would be some projects you could start with.
Yeah, and I do think that this question just reminded me about, if you say what technological stack should you pick, it somehow resembles me like, what instruments should I pick to play music? Like, you just need to find your own instrument. If you like trumpet, if you like guitar, if you like drums, then I really recommend to pick that particular instrument and practice on it. Then you will get into the music and you can get better.
Yeah, if you don't like it, like you're not going to use your time on it, you will burn out pretty quick. I had to say.
Go ahead, Mateusz.
No, you go ahead. You were first.
I was just going to say, this is more based on strategy, but when I went to a boot camp, so it was dictated for me what I learned first. It was Ruby on Rails and then JavaScript and React. And the reason I think it was like that was because, I paid to go to this boot camp, and then I signed this thing that said if I didn't get a job in 6 months after, I would get all of my money back. And so I trusted that this program knew like what people were hiring for, what kind of developers and what kind of stacks, the industry is into right now. And so if you are trying to, pick a stack that you want to learn to get a job, I would say look at job requirements online and see what people are listing as what they are looking for. As far as like learning, I totally agree with Michał. Just pick one, because the logic and the skill set you're going to build around that is the same in every single language for the most part. And you can Google stuff, but if you really don't know and you don't have a strong opinion, I would say go based on what people want, where you would want to find a job.
Yeah, I agree with this.
Go.
Sorry. I agree with this 100%. I also wanted to recommend the same thing. Just go on job boards and see what is popular, see what pays money, gives you money, and you can choose this, right? And if we will start learning, and as Michał said, you will not like the instrument that you've chosen, you can always switch. And me personally, I've started with Python. I think I did Python for like 1 year, and then I switched to JavaScript. And the switch was so effortless for me because those languages are actually so similar. There are some like exotic ones, like crazy ones, like the Haskell, which I like. But other than that, those which are popular in the industry, they are extremely similar to each other. So if you learn like great programming in Python, then switching to JavaScript will take, a few weeks or something, and you will learn everything you need, and you will be ready to switch your tech stack. So I agree. First, take what you like, but if you don't know what you like, take what you see on job boards and stuff.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that boot camps and attending university gives a great structure that I sometimes wish I had around the knowledge, because I sometimes feel like I have deep knowledge in certain topics, but then there could be this one thing that binds it together, and having a structured way of learning, like Paula did. I think it's a good way to do this. But once again, like if you're doing what you're doing good, yeah, there's no bad way of doing it. Okay, another question. What are the most positive aspects that surprised you in IT, in tech industry, that you didn't expect, or what was the most negative ones? And I think this will be the last question that we have.
All right, so if I could start, the best things that happened to me, well, they came from people. It is all about the people, in my opinion, especially those who are helpful, those who were very actually kind of had a lot of patience to explain me some topics when I was a junior. I really value those people. I really value mentorship. Being a good tech lead, being a good team lead, a kind of a person that is a kind of like guides you for the common goal that we have. So it's totally about the people, and I really love how people are just helpful, willing to help, and we take the code base as our whole part, not like it's an individual contributors fighting against each other. I really love places where people are just working together. They are sharing the same thoughts, the same approach, and many good things come when you are in such environment. You basically thrive because it gets you to a higher level. Such mentors, for instance, they just show you how it could be done in a different manner, or they show you a cleaner design pattern. That's great. And the negative cases, well, that's a kind of like a tricky question, but I might say that a pace is a little bit too fast. It's that if you have high pace of development, you just don't compromise on software quality. So the projects have tight deadlines. They might just rush, and you basically are forced to push your tasks that gets merged. And well, some descriptions could be unclear. There could be some uncertainties. Some test cases could not be covered, and this basically degrades the whole code base. So I'd say that sometimes this unclear vision, business requirements, fast-paced might be a very negative syndrome which affects your work on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, I agree. For me, the best thing about the IT community was the openness. I have to say, people are sharing knowledge and trying to help each other to achieve stuff. Like, yeah, companies, close their stuff. Not all of the code is open source, but still, so much software is open, and there are so much learning materials. When I was in biotech, because the field in that industry in Poland is not super developed like in the US. It is very competitive. This is like a rat race, I would say, and people are not helping each other. And what surprised me positively was the amount of encouragement I got when switching to IT. Like, motivation from other people. Like, yeah, you can do it. It's great. Join us. And so yeah, that's and it's also there's a lot to learn. Like, you can find anything basically. Like, you don't like that framework, pick another, and maybe it'll be better. You don't like that language, there's like a ton more. And the negative things are kind of, I have to agree with Michał. Like, just sometimes the pace is too big, and maybe not in IT itself, but about switching careers. Like, it's very hard sometimes to do this. Like, if you did something for 10 years, then switching your mind to completely different mindset, yeah, it's a challenge, but it's doable. So I highly recommend it. Anybody?
Well, yeah, I think it surprised me what Michał Dobrzański said, because I agree with him 100% both on positives and negatives. Positives were also people for me always. Like, the best memories from companies is me just like hanging out with people, chatting with them, like maybe meeting in person somewhere. Like, this is the best stuff, definitely. And the worst stuff is it's probably a cliche at this point, but yeah, this is like stuff related to business and how things can be organized in a company. Maybe pace is too fast. Maybe things are organized in a weird manner, and you don't know what is going on. But I would also say the biggest positive and negative at the same time is that you have to learn constantly. And this is a massive positive because, you have to be curious, you have to learn constantly, you are playing around with new technologies, but you also have to learn constantly. And this can be draining and tiring. And, on the weekend, you want to like hang out with folks, but you're like, oh, I should probably read this article about GraphQL or whatever, right? And you're like, oh, sometimes it can be both. So that's for me why it's so interesting, because it's both the big positive and big negative at the same time.
I also just quickly want to add, I think maybe what Michał was saying before about being 2021 and people in this industry have to have communication skills, and they're not just like in their own little world. I, for one, did not expect that when I transferred over, and I've been so like surprised to find that the people I work with that are software engineers are some of the most like open, welcoming, supportive, compassionate people that I've ever worked with. And so it's been great and a little bit unexpected. So I just wanted to piggyback on that. I can't agree more with that.
Yeah. It kind of kills the stereotype that developers are a bunch of people in glasses sitting in their rooms, right, in a hoodie.
Yeah, they care only about computers and nothing else. They only think very logically, and they can't relate to you in a way. And it's so false. It's like, yeah, I agree. It's the biggest like falsehood about IT.
It's the biggest lie.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we will wrap this up now. Is there anything you would like to share right now? Like any socials stuff?
I would love to. I'm open to talk to anyone, and I feel like I got a lot of help from people when I was making this switch and looking for a job. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I am. But if anyone ever wants to talk, I'm here. I would love to be a resource.
Yeah, thank you. Michał, I know that you have your app that you're building right now.
Yes, so if I have some place to advertise it, then I will do it. Yeah, this is the URL which points to the landing page. It was the app written entirely by me, and it's about taking care of your plants. So it's a kind of a helper tool to remind you about watering, fertilizing, And this was my side project, and it required a lot of those persistence to just do it after hours, even though that I have many mental breakdowns during this period. But I really do recommend it to check it. A major upgrade is going very soon.
And that's a way to learn for those who are wondering how to start your career in IT. Just do stuff. Do side projects besides, of course, what we discussed before. And if you want to see Michał's GitHub, here's the name. As for me, I'm mostly on Twitter, which is Miąskowski, and on Dev2 I sometimes publish articles, so you can check those as well. Mateusz, you want to share, or you're good?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter as well. If you Google this thingy on Twitter, you will find me. And I sometimes write some articles about development as well, so maybe you can read it. So that's all.
Is it this?
No, I wanted this, but they didn't have this actually. Somebody already
no.
took it, so it's M with dash Podlasin actually on Twitter.
Okay.
It was stolen
okay.
from me, so.
Okay, so it's this.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I believe it's this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for attending this. Super happy that all of us could make it. I think everybody has an interesting story and a completely different perspective on the topic. I hope we could do another one. The topic is so broad. We could definitely do a second one. So let us know if we should. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you.